Welcome to
The W.
the W.
Why is it called the W?
Well, this is a sports show. And we're calling it the W because there's going to be an emphasis on the WNBA, also known as the W. But also, it's called the W as a what's the word I'm looking for?
An
as
homage.
Like an homage
To another world-class athlete.
Another world-class athlete. Yes, exactly. Why don't you pull him up?
Pull
and
him
show us
up.
some of his great athleticism.
Greatest hits right here. Well, near hits. Near misses,
Oh my
I guess.
God. Just play the video.
Okay.
Because of the success of the surge.
جنوده وجنود الولايات المتحدة والمدنيين فإننا نقترب كثيرا من هذه النهاية.
شكرا جزيلا.
Bring it back. The first one.
كثيرا
The
من
first
هذه
one.
النهاية.
This is not a
شكرا
game.
جزيلا.
He's not playing the first one. Look at that. Unfazed.
Hey, just quick reactions.
W.
So yeah, that's
Wasn't he a cheerleader?
I don't know.
I'm
Was
almost
he?
certain. I'm slipping on my Bush facts.
I mean, we were chatting before this, and I said I thought he rode horses, but I think that was just part of like the Texan persona that was crafted.
think
And
he
I
was
fully
a
imagined
cheerleader
that.
at Yale.
I mean, cool.
We gotta.
That's
yeah,
sick. Hell yeah.
That's true. That's facts.
In
Hold on,
high
I gotta
school.
pull this. I gotta pull this up.
Yo,
There goes
the bucket
W.
hat.
Yeah, there we go.
The bucket hat. That's a sick outfit, honestly. Like I would absolutely wear that.
That's W.
Sign me up. Yeah.
W.
You know? So the W, because we need to honor
Our war
I'm sorry, I
criminals.
can't even
Oh
do
yeah, actually, you know what? That's the other thing that reminds me. Olympics 2028. It's coming up.
It is coming up. So what new sports are we gonna
New
have?
event.
Breakdancing is out. right?
Breakdancing is out. Throwing shoes at war criminals is in. That's a new
And
event.
The war criminals will be selected by popular vote.
Okay, all right. BB,
World vote. Popular world vote.
BB, you know it's
Importantly.
coming.
Yeah.
You know what's up, BB. We'll see you in LA.
You better work on your ducking.
So, okay.
Shoes are coming. But yeah, anyway, so this is going to be a show about politics and sports, broadly speaking, with an extra emphasis on the W, because the season's coming up, starting May 17th. We're in preseason right now. And I'm an aspiring W fan.
Yes.
And I've been for many years. And maybe not even aspiring. I am a fan, but just one, I dip my toes in. And you've been a lifelong.
Almost. Yeah,
almost
since I
lifelong.
was like 8.
Yeah, I mean, in the 10 years I've known you, you've talked about the Lynx
A lot.
a lot,
Yeah.
like a lot.
That's because my original team no longer exists. Just real quick, a blast from the past. Because, all right, I need to talk to a certain type of person. Yes, I'm talking to you, Caitlin Clark fans.
Oh, already.
And it's annoying. I'm sorry, I have to do it. There's a reason why every single attendance or viewership record that they talk about for Caitlin Clark always goes back to either 2002 or 2001. They're like, this is the most viewers since 2001 or since 2002 or whatever. It has never been the most viewers in the history of the WNBA, because in the late 90s, all the way through about 2001, 2002, the league used to be on NBC and widely
much
available.
more easily. Like you could watch it more easily. Like
Yes.
even the other day, I was trying to turn on a preseason game, and I'm like, "Where's the game? Why can't we find it? What's the deal? We had to like go on a hunt to watch the game."
That's right. But back in the day, you used to be able to watch it, right? So, blast from the past. Here's some of the defunct teams, because.
Oh yeah.
So that's Dawn Staley, who is now the coach of University of South Carolina, hooping for the Charlotte Sting. I actually have one of her basketball cards.
Really? Well, let's put it behind us instead of this stupid ass Randy Moss jersey
I will
that we
take
got.
no smut on Randy Moss's name. We will have no smut
I don't know anything
on
about
Randy
Randy Moss.
Moss's name. I'll tell
Anyway,
you
keep it
that.
rolling. What are the other teams?
So that's the Charlotte Sting. They're gone. Cleveland Rockers. I forgot they ever had a team.
I've never heard of that team in my life.
They were in the league for 6 years, till 2003.
I have heard of the Comets.
Now, this was my squad.
I think it was like a lot of people's squads.
Cynthia Cooper on the left, number 14. Tina Thompson in the middle, number 7. And Cheryl Swoops, number 22, who had her own shoe, by the way.
Sick.
Signature shoe. Yeah.
What brand?
I believe it was Nike. But
I mean,
it was,
I don't know why I asked. Like, cool.
it was back in the day when like there was exposure for these players, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
part of the culture.
They were
Like,
really building something. Actually, you know what started this? Was it last year or the year before? I feel like we watched a really long documentary about the founding of the WNBA.
in Team USA.
Yeah. I don't remember
did.
what it was called, but it was really good.
This
It got
was-
me very interested.
This was my backup team because I really love Tisha Pinocchiero. And that's number 21 here. And that's Yolanda Griffith. She was amazing at rebounding. And she could pass the ball. Like, Tisha could pass the ball like crazy.
Sick.
Now, the best player was Cynthia Cooper to me.
Yes.
Then Cheryl Swoops. But the best player
As
was
I've
Cynthia
heard
Cooper.
from you
Many a time.
many times.
And apparently there was a Portland Fire. It just
For 2 years. I've
yeah,
never heard of that
never
team
heard of
either.
it.
I've heard of the Miami Soul.
So, you know,
Yeah.
RIP to the old teams. Now, there was something, you know, just to veer back to the politics thing real quick.
Oh, yeah,
There was
the
something
Great
else
Bush
you wanted
family.
to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of American political dynasties,
Mm-hmm.
so we were joking around earlier today, and I was saying that it's funny that I wanted to start a sports podcast because I've never in my life listened to a sports podcast. And then today we were at the gym. I was lifting some weights, and I decided to turn on kind of a sports podcast, A Touch More, with Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe. And they recently had on none other than Chelsea Clinton, because Chelsea Clinton has been apparently a champion of women's athletics. She has written multiple children's books about female athletes and has made this like one of her
niche.
things. one of many. She's also written about like global health. Like, I don't know what she's doing. But yeah, so she's done this, and I didn't listen to the entire interview, but I found it very interesting.
Why?
So the first thing that got me was she was talking about how when she first started really advocating for women's sports.
Why are you laughing
You're-
at advocating
you're like-
for women's sports?
Because the look on your face, you're like, what's happening?
I'm like, you know, we just transitioned from the defunct WNBA teams, and I feel like Chelsea Clinton is defunct. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I know.
Like,
She came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know what she's like running the Clinton Foundation. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
Which,
don't
like, I
know.
don't know what that is. But anyway, so she was talking about how when she first started advocating for women's sports, she was really annoyed by people who would come to her and sort of say, like, oh, I care about this now, like, ever since I had a daughter. And she was annoyed that that was, like, the entry point because, as she put it, you should just, quote, do the right thing and, like, believe in women's, like, empowerment. So we can get to that. But now she says that she actually doesn't care how you arrive in the conversation, and everybody's welcome to advocate for women's sports. So I just wanted to let you know that Chelsea Clinton is welcoming you is definitely welcoming us into a political conversation about women's sports.
you know what? All right. What that means, though, is that we have free reign to politicize this entire thing, which we are
Oh, yeah.
definitely going to. If you think that you're going to tune into an After Empire production and not read, got another thing for you. So we'll get to that later, though. All right.
Yeah,
so
Chelsea Clinton says,
approves.
at least you're here.
At least, yeah.
At least you're here.
and
Caring
by
about women's
you,
sports.
I mean the audience. And they probably didn't know what they were getting into, because the way I think we're going to title this, I don't know. We might bury the lead. I don't know. There is nothing
I
that
don't
we've
know that
done
there's a lead
up
here.
to this point as a group that says we're going to talk about sports.
No, but like you and I talk about sports every day.
That's
and
true.
I talk about fitness every day.
That's
it's
true.
something I care about deeply. And I think the way that conversations about sports are often like contained or who they're assumed to be for or not is extremely political.
yeah.
You know?
Tell me more about that.
Well, I think, right, there's a contradiction where on the one hand, sports are massively, massively popular. It's ubiquitous. It's like often a thing people talk about when you like meet somebody new and you don't know what to talk about. Well, at the same time, in sort of the world I'm in, where like with a lot of women and other people, there's sort of this like disdain, like, ugh, I don't want to talk about sports. That's not for me. I'm an intellectual. I don't do that. I don't do silly sports That's for the plebes. And I think that's wrong. I think that sports are incredibly social. They're a really important part of building community and of building relationships with people. And like they're also a really important tool, right? There's something about sports that lends them to politics. There's a reason sports have always been political. There's a really rich history of like activism and other sort of political struggles of like sports being a primary vector through which those political struggles happen. And so I think part of what we want to explore is why is that and how does that take shape?
And also in the 20th century socialist movements, it was sports performance, not just at the highest level, although that was a big part of it, but sports in general as part of the general public. Increasing people's active participation in it across a lifetime was a big point of emphasis, but also building out sports programs that could compete at the Olympics and beat the capitalist countries, for example, was a big deal. And so something about using like what are the relations that go into creating excellence? And it becomes like a plane ideologically for fighting that out. Yeah. Is because in capitalist ideology, so much of it is about competition and just, first of all, lies. Because capitalism is not structured around free competition between. That's ridiculous. But but even then, they've taken that idea and they use sports as a proselytizing tool to reinforce capitalist concepts,
yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And to enforce nationalism, right? Yeah. Explicitly.
And you have to do the same thing with socialism. Yeah. And with liberation struggles and all of that, you have to engage in on the sports plane. Yep. So
I think even too, just going back to like a really basic level, I think a lot of people have experienced sports and athleticism similar to you and I. So for me, I've been extremely athletic my entire life, extremely involved in sports, both team and individual. And yet I've had zero interest up until the last like 5 years or so in paying attention to any kind of professional sports because I was just kind of like grossed out by the whole thing. You, on the other hand, are like, okay, who was the number 1 football draft pick in 2008?
In 2008? Holy shit. Man, you're really putting me on the spot. What? Come back to me.
Okay. Usually you should just rattle them off.
It's because, wait, NBA or NFL?
Either one. Who cares?
All right. NBA, it was, was it Derrick Rose? I believe it was Derrick Rose.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. Right? So you just like, you are like an encyclopedia of sports knowledge. It's shaped so much of just like your general identity and who you are, and I think how you relate to other people generally, but also I'm sure men especially in many regards, right? If you're like at whatever, it's just like a thing you're gonna talk about.
I used to be scared of sports when I was a little kid.
Oh yeah,
like we were playing touch football and they were about to like tackle me and I just threw the ball and I was like, I'm not getting it. Yeah. And then the next, I was like, I was in second grade, early second grade. And then I felt ashamed that I had thrown the ball before getting tackled. So from then on, I was like, I'm balling out. And for the rest of elementary school, I was the first person picked in
nice.
Sports.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And then everybody grew and I was cooked. Everybody grew and I didn't, and I was fucked. Like that was it. Mm-hmm. So fifth grade, sixth grade, your boy was balling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's tough too, right? There's also this like huge divergence between professional sports and also the fact that like sports are for society. And I think anyone should be able to play them. You should like it should be an open environment for the most part. And people get really obsessed with like dunking or like whatever the like thing is in a particular sport. And like, if you can't do that, then like why are you even bothering? And that's really like bad socially, like for our health, all kinds of things. And so
then with the influence of the commercialization of sport has been pretty intense recently because of just how intense the betting, for example, has taken over.
Gosh, yeah. And that's going to be an episode, sports gambling.
I mean,
for sure.
we'll go through it in a minute, or not today, but in the future, we'll go through. The Athletic had an article maybe a week or two ago where they asked the players in the NBA what their thoughts were about gambling.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's
Oh, I'm sure
illuminating.
it's spicy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe tell us a little bit. I mean, that's a great entry point. So I hear you're in the comment threads of The Athletic,
Oh,
just
man.
like waging war.
Well, see, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. So politics and sports, they go together. If you're not fighting on the sports plane, what are we doing? So, especially in
So
this
for those
country,
of you who don't know, The Athletic is what the New
it's
York
the
Times,
New York Times
like
sports page, essentially.
Yeah.
It used to be independent, but the Times bought it a couple of years ago. So they did things like when the war in Ukraine started, all these sporting associations banned Russians from competing in the sports. So and then
didn't your preferred football team lose their owners
yeah,
because
yeah,
they
yeah.
were Russian?
Chelsea was owned by a Russian oligarch, and the UK government forced him to sell the team, and we suck now. And I'm very upset about it.
Yeah, you definitely haven't had the same enthusiasm
No,
for Chelsea.
we're trash now.
Ever since.
We are trash. So
Yeah.
but it intersects with all of these, with global politics in very real ways, because sports are like a key ideological tool among the, and not just like in general for the capitalist system, but like for different factions within it, right? So the question of women, which, you know, the U.S. has dominated in women's athletics for many, many years, right? And part of the reason for that, especially in the team sports, soccer or football, but soccer and basketball, it's like super dominant, right?
Yeah.
Well, soccer they've lost a couple times, but the women's basketball, that's not happening. But the part of the reason is because of the legislation at the collegiate level that requires equal access for women and men. So because the football teams were so big for men, then they wanted to have women's team sports because they had to offer equal scholarships.
Right.
So then soccer teams and basketball teams became good ways for schools to comply.
Which is
with the
also
law.
often why schools will have like a women's soccer team and not a men's.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not unusual.
Which then created a pool of players going back, you know, to the early 90s that had been through college sports as women in other countries didn't have those same setups yet.
Right.
So, or if they did, whatever.
I mean, I think too, people really underestimate or just like don't know. Like I know that I just didn't know for a long time, only based on personal experiences. Like I think people really underestimate how hard women have had to fight to be in athletic spaces historically and still today. Like I tell you stories all the time. I'm in a women's cycling group and like dudes that we know will like come and ride up and they'll be like, oh yeah, like I want to ride with you. And we have to like agitationally, forcefully be like, no, this is not for you. We'll ride with you another day. Right. And in the cycling community, there's like a whole, the gender thing is like a really just, pressing kind of question that shapes.
Let's transition. Like, let's follow up on that.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
give it
something
some
worth
historical
exploring.
context. Yeah. Just a little bit.
We're gonna cover a little. We always gonna
And
have
then
a book on deck.
we'll get goofy.
Well, yeah, we'll get back to the W.
But it is important to the W. No, it is important though to give
we
some
need to lay
historical
some context, right?
Right, and I think people know this a little bit. The story you're about to say, like, there's often jokes like, "Oh yeah, women used to not be able to run," because that's what you're about to talk about, right?
Yeah. So we got this book, which is a pretty good book. It's
Team of Rivals by
Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Yeah.
So it's about the Civil War and it's about Lincoln's cabinet. But it's not just about the men in it, it's also about their wives too. And one of them is Frances Seward. And these are like wealthy women, right? And so Frances Seward is extremely wealthy and she's describing what that has done to her. So she was debilitated, right? Had these, was invalid, as they would say back then. And she's addressing like the root or the source of her condition. And so the quote, here's from the book. Doctors could not pinpoint the physical origin of the various ailments that conspired to leave Frances a semi-invalid. A brilliant woman, Frances once speculated whether the, quote, various nervous afflictions and morbid habits of thought that plagued so many women she knew had their origin in the frustrations of an educated woman's life in the mid-19th century. Among her papers is a draft of an unpublished essay on the plight of women. Quote, to share in any kind of household work is to demean herself, and she would be thought mad to run, leap, or engage in active sports. She was permitted to dance all night in ballrooms, but it would be deemed unwomanly and imprudent for her to race with her children on the common or to search the cliff for flowers. Reflecting on the number of invalids that exist among women exempted from labor, she suggested the want of fitting employment, real purpose in their life, was responsible. So this is among the wealthy, the upper class, because we know this.
Yeah. Poor women have been
sharecropping
moving and grooving
women,
for a long time.
Slave women, like, come on, they did physical activity, right? But they weren't necessarily considered ladies.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So they weren't women in the idealized sense of the term at the time. And so to be a woman meant to be physically
incapable.
Yes.
Right.
And incapacitated. And so it was, I think that when you see the discourse, and we won't necessarily get into the details of that in this episode as far as like the negativity around how people talk about the WNBA in particular. But
homophobia,
just outright misogyny, like, you know, whatever.
Outrageous.
So, but its roots go back a long time in this country to the fact that the women's athletics are part of overturning, you know, centuries of conditioning just in this country, you know. And I think that's significant. I think it's important to take a step back and look. Now, you pointed out something that was more
tragic, you know, even more tragic. Yeah, and I mean, I think highlights the stakes of a lot of these questions, right? So in 1904,
technical
Wardrobe
difficulties.
Change.
I'm wearing the same sweatshirt. Still clean though. Still clean. Still crispy. But yeah, I think it's, you know, I think we should give some historical context for women's sports, right? To like, I think demonstrate or give like a little taste or sprinkle of why this matters so much and why it provides such a rich entry point to talking about politics more broadly.
Yeah. So I think like you had brought up this example from back in the day.
Yeah. So in 1904, you're talking about the ship? Yeah.
Yes.
So in 1904, there was a ship in New York City that was going down the East River. A church had like arranged for this boat to take mostly women and children down the river to a picnic. And the ship caught on fire. The life jackets were faulty. It was just sort of a disaster of huge proportions. And for the most part, nobody knew how to swim on this boat. And so I think around like 1,200 or 1,300 people died, mostly women and children. Women's bodies were washing up to shore for days. And so this caused eventually sort of like a big public conversation around swimming lessons, learning how to swim, and especially for women, like the importance of this. And, you know, what this article and another one that we'll go to in a minute sort of demonstrate is that part of one of the key barriers to preventing women from learning how to swim was sort of framing it as this issue of modesty. And so this article talks about how, due to concerns over modesty, they took to teaching women how to swim, like not in the water. And so, yeah.
That's what that picture is.
That's what that picture is swimming lessons out of water, which I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's insane.
Water seems pretty key to this all.
An old proverb falsified. Teaching swimming on dry land. Swimming without water, an ingenious invention for practicing the stroke.
It kind of looks like aerial yoga.
This is crazy. Or Pilates. Like
no, aerial yoga. But anyway, can you go to the other article?
Let me look at this last little bit. So part of it, in addition to the modesty question with teaching them the technique of swimming, it also was a problem around what they were wearing. And so after this, 3 years later, an Australian, Annette Kellerman, came and she was looking at like what women were required to wear for swim suits, right? And so she staged a one-woman protest on Revere Beach near Boston, where she was arrested for public nudity while wearing a man's suit. In court, she defended herself by famously saying, "Don't women have the right to save themselves from drowning when men aren't around to protect them? Then how can we learn to swim wearing more material than you hang on a clothesline?" And that's the context where you have the refusal to teach the technique. You have in the imposition of cultural standards that disincentivize participation. Then you have the clothing structure, like the materiality of like the physical materiality of it.
Yeah.
That's making it so you can't physically do it. And so it's this really good example of not only just how important women's sports are and just women's athletic training, sense of mastery, all of these things, like why it's important, but also all the barriers that have existed for it being achieved and demonstrated.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think too, to give a little bit more detail around what women were expected to wear. So, there's a quote in this article that says, and one of the main reasons for that was modesty, right, in the outfits that were necessary for swimming, right? So during this time period, women were expected to wear wool tights, knee-length bloomers, a sailor-style blouse, a belt, a full skirt, and then shoes or swimming boots, which weighed a lot. And that ended up being like 7 to 10 yards of fabric, and not like waterproof fabric, like wool. And so women were concerned around like getting into the water with all of that fabric on and had a fear of the skirt tangling up and drowning, which is a completely rational feeling to have. I can't imagine getting in the water with that much and like trying to swim.
So women didn't learn, and then it was insane, right?
Yeah, an absolute disaster. Right. So yeah, even just having like, even outside of the professionalization of sports, even having just a culture of sport is, I think this really like demonstrates the stakes of that in a really kind of acute way.
Because this picture is of the bodies of the people, mostly women and children, like I said, that died. It's insane, right? So I think that speaks to the stakes, of course, and I think that that's really important to meditate on, like when we're talking about the WNBA, because I feel that there's so much discussion now about the game that's about denigrating it,
Yeah. You mean like denigrating like the athleticism of women, even when
the athleticism, the culture of just anything about it, frankly.
Yeah. That it's not worth your energy or attention.
Yeah. And I think that that's speaking or coming out of this vein of creating these structural barriers to I think so. All right, it's political, right? Yeah. So the physical aspect or demonstrating physical courage, physical strength, all of these things, I'll say in the context of liberal society is important, but I think it's been a thing for a really long time, right?
Sure.
And when you systematically strip people of being able to perform that for themselves, like as a self-expression, because like it's, if you have slaves, they would field competitions between them about who could pick the most cotton, who could do this, whatever, and it didn't translate into a sense of personhood that the slaves possessed, right? So it's not simply that physical activity itself is somehow, liberatory.
Like the
but
primary determinant.
But when that physical activity is attached to an expression of personhood, which is therefore attached to citizenship, that like it's really like this key nexus.
Yeah.
And so
that's like kind of the point of the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah. And
for better or worse.
So I think like you're seeing the denigration of women's sports, and it's tied to, in this country, creating structural barriers to push women out of combat roles in the military, which they only just opened up combat roles to women recently in the U.S. military, right?
Right.
Whereas in other places, such a thing is common. I got to do it to them. I can't help it.
China?
I gotta talk about
tell us
China real
more.
quick. Like, so this is one of my favorite articles. It's called Iron Bodies, Women, War, and Sport in the Early Communist Movement in Modern China. So it's about 20th century socialism has this kind of process of using athletics as a way of building the social camaraderie that you need in order to like wage political struggle. But in China, that was attached to the actual army, the building of the Red Army, where women had not just an active role, but also like a combat role in that army, right? So I just pulled a couple of little quotes here to just to peruse, just to take a little gander. And the point of all of this was to free women from the feudal culture and family structure so that they could participate side by side with men in the multi-sector struggle.
Right.
And exercise and sport became a crucial part of it. So they created a formal system of physical exercise for women that for the first time permeated all levels of society. Women of every background were made to exercise with a single purpose: military survival. The emancipatory ideal of the female liberated body, both physiologically and psychologically, became the property of the ideologically committed of all classes rather than of the financially favored of a single class. And so it talks about how they needed to do this to build the party and build the army, and that and this I think is like a key little part. Exercise henceforth was considered a fundamental aspect of the physical, cultural, and military training of people in Soviet areas in China.
Yeah.
It was a method of enabling the masses to develop fitness, build a spirit de corps, and develop endurance. More than this, it was a means of binding the bulk of the workers and peasants to the party, Soviet, and Red Army, and drawing them into political activity. Exercise was an inseparable part of political education.
Right.
So I think like I wanted to highlight that because
Yeah.
it's not just about women's sports. It's about like for like watching them or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Like, what is this for, and
Yeah,
how does it
right.
fit within broader political transformation? And I think whatever Chelsea Clinton is talking about is one thing,
Yeah.
but I think there are other angles to really come at this with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. I think there's a couple things I'm thinking about. Like, one is that in addition to the Bird and Taurasi show, something else that's gotten me interested in sports is also being exposed to more sports cultures in other countries and seeing the way that like certain soccer teams have explicit political affiliations. Shout out Borussia Dortmund and especially Celtic FC, who is holding it down
For Palestine.
for Palestine, which is
They get
really cool.
fined in the European competitions
Yeah,
for displaying PFLP flags.
Yeah. So, I mean, seeing that really kind of opened my mind in a lot of ways to the sort of ideas that you're talking about right now. And I think the kind of other piece of it that I'm thinking about is the way that that article to me highlights the lack of development of our political culture in the United States, at least like on the like so-called left or with more progressive politics, because sports aren't really taken very seriously as like relevant, and meanwhile we have like the white nationalists absolutely
MMA.
holding it down with MMA, with CrossFit. I don't know what else they're on these days. Weird shit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like weird, like drinking raw eggs. I don't
even
know.
the
raw
Murph.
milk. They love raw milk. There's Liver King. Like,
Yeah.
we like love whatever.
They've flooded the zone.
Or should I talk about it?
What?
Left my last gym because
Oh.
the owner was talking to me about Andrew Tate and how he had a lot of the right ideas.
Listen,
So I left that. I
Listen,
ran out
listen.
of that place with the quickness.
you and I have different approaches to these things. Me, with my anthropology background, I was like, it's time for a social investigation. What do you mean, brother? I actually learned a lot. That this is a subject for another discussion about what we can learn from reactionaries. But I learned quite a bit. It was great.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just all to say that there is sort of this like like the link between fitness and reactionary politics is quite strong, and so like we gotta do something.
Yeah, there's some work that
put a
has to be
stop
done.
this.
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
and there's practical reasons for it too, around like stuff's really sharp, and to maintain, like, when you get politically active, you are taking a risk. Politics is risky, and you will be put under pressure. This isn't about just some like fantasy. I think a lot of people who claim to have revolutionary politics get into a fantasy of like, I'm gonna have a gun and I'm gonna take a, something like that, right?
Yeah, sure.
The point for one of the foundational reasons for exercise as a consistent practice is around your stress management. Like because politics is a risk, you will be put under intense pressure and stress. And if you don't have the protocols around eating, around exercise, sleep, these kinds of things, you will go to pieces. And like,
and that's a normal response. Of course,
totally
you're going
normal.
to. Like, we can't just outthink or like, exert ourselves so much that we can just like do without.
And that's why that was that article is speaking about that. The political education or the politics wasn't separate from the exercise, right? Mm-hmm. They're rejecting, philosophically, they are rejecting a mind-body dualism. And I think in my past, I thought that if I was committed enough, or if I was willing to sacrifice enough, or if my mind was separate from my physical form.
Yeah, the body didn't matter.
That it didn't matter.
Was simply just like a
incidental.
Incidental.
To what I was doing. And so I couldn't see that my mind was my body. Mm-hmm. And that, so again, this speaks to the significance of women's sports, because women are not just denigrated physiologically, but also intellectually. All of it goes together, right? So, if we are going to wage political struggles or build political institutions, they're going to have to reject the mind-body dualism, reject the mental and manual labor distinctions, all of these kinds of things.
What counts as quote-unquote real labor.
Yeah, exactly. All of this kind of stuff to begin to incorporate the physiological aspect of what it means to be liberated. Because that's what they were saying, Liz, that the female liberated body. And
which is such a good question too, I think, to ask, like, what is a liberated body? And I think that's going to look different in different contexts and mean different things for different people, that we should actually have like a pretty expansive understanding of what that looks like in terms of ability, in terms of what activities it is, or like, Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I think that's part of what we're going to like explore here through different frameworks.
So that's why, I think that's part of, I think we wanted to establish what the point of view is here, I think, So we're, of course, going to talk about a lot of sports stuff and all of this, I might jump out and do 20 push-ups for a homie, Go right ahead. This is one of my things, they tried to come at Ibrahim Traore, and so you got to do 20 push-ups for Traore.
Sure.
You got to hit him, but at any rate.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw up, I think, getting back to basketball.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like, right, you're thinking through a lot of what you've been talking about, even what we hear so often today, right? I think oftentimes like the refrains we hear when we bring up women's sports and people's sort of like resistance or blockage to engaging them. And so often what I hear is, oh, they're not as good. It's not as interesting. It's not as entertaining. They're not as physically capable. So why bother? Which one is bonkers to me, because this idea that you can only watch a sport if you're watching like the best as some arbitrary, or it's not arbitrary, actually. It's a very like power laden understanding of what physical capacity looks like.
And also, let's keep it real. A lot of these men watching these sports are inveterate gamblers, and y'all are betting on any sport. Y'all are betting on if there's toddler t-ball and you could get on FanDuel and bet on it. These guys are doing it. They're betting on anything. Yeah. So I don't want to hear it. As many gamblers, the same gamblers that will bet on a sport they've never seen before, like some tennis or pickleball or something that they've never seen. Just check the box score. Come on, man. Like, please stop. Like, let's get it real. We will talk about gambling later.
Show us one of your favorite basketball player.
I want to say it's for me. It's the toss up between Taurasi and Maya Moore.
Yeah.
Maya Moore only played 7 years.
As long. Is she?
So and won 4 championships. So to me,
That's
she's the best.
crazy.
Like, and she played for the Lynx, which is my squad. So we need to throw some highlights on just in the background. You know what I'm saying?
You know, see what's
just
up.
a little, just to give people a little taste of like, you know, what is out here in the W.
Yeah, if you've just never seen women run around before.
Boom, steal.
Ooh,
That was fire. That
was sick.
She caught an alley-oop.
Yeah.
Crossed her up.
Yep. Yeah.
That's some Michael Jordan type stuff. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, can LeBron do that?
Yes, LeBron
I'm
can
kidding.
do that.
That's not. I'm joking. I'm just being antagonistic. That's not the point.
Stop it. But anyway, she was just so good. Like, she could do everything. She could rebound, she could block shots, steal the ball, shoot threes, take
You're
it
just,
to
like,
the
describing the basics of basketball.
Well, she
now.
could do every single thing on the court.
Yeah, but you're also saying she could do it like
better than anybody.
Well, or
Yes, better than anybody. So
yeah.
I mean, I say all of this to say, like, a lot of people got into women's basketball with Caitlin Clark. Like,
really recently.
There's
Which,
like
cool.
It's cool.
I'm
it's
like
great.
happy to have people
Yay.
watching the sport.
It's wonderful.
You know.
But Maya Moore was the truth. Like, she was amazing. I remember I've seen her play live. Like, I've been to Lynx games, and I mean,
yeah,
I'm just glad I got to see her, you know. But I've seen Candace Parker play, a few others, but at any rate, it's me fanning out over Maya.
She doesn't play anymore.
No.
So why don't you give us a little update about where the W left off at the end of last season, since we're about to embark on a new season?
Yeah, new season's coming up, and this is again Lynx related because this is my squad, right? So we need to talk about this. There's a conspiracy, okay?
So the Liberty won.
Yes. You watched
title.
this last year.
I did. It was a really fun game, and I was angry by the end of it. And I didn't quite
know why.
But I had feelings.
That's because you caught them from me.
Yeah.
Because I was very upset. So
give us a little update about what went down in the championship game.
All right. So this is one of the last plays in regulation in the deciding game in the championship last year. And it was a travesty, a complete, just watch. And I'm not the only one mad about it also. And Lynx fans aren't the only ones mad at it. So just for the record.
This is the moment the referees ruined the WNBA championship. The New York Liberty were down by 2 points with 6 seconds left. They inbound the ball to Breonna Stewart. She gets away with the travel but draws a foul. The Minnesota Lynx tried challenging the foul call, but it was deemed unsuccessful. Stewart steps up to the free throw line and makes both shots, tying the game and pushing it into overtime, where the Lynx lose. The controversy comes from Stewart taking what appeared to be 4 steps before dribbling, rather than the allowed 2. This misstep led to her losing balance, so she forced her weight into the defender to draw what appeared to be a foul that was called by the refs. And to make matters worse, the WNBA removed this controversial play from the official YouTube highlights, taking out the most crucial moment of the game to show Stewart's game-tying free throws instead. But it doesn't end there. During the New York Liberty's trophy ceremony, the WNBA commissioner was seen wearing a dress printed with the New York City skyline on it. This is the moment
Crazy work.
It's something.
When
you know?
you pointed it out to me.
Well, yeah, like we're watching it where they like get the trophy. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'm like, hey, who's that lady?
And I was like, yeah, that's the
That's
commissioner.
the commissioner. And I was like, she's wearing a dress of the New York skyline.
She better have had 2 dresses.
And you were
okay?
like, what?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was pissed. And then the worst part about being a fan of the WNBA, and there are some drawbacks. The worst part is there's no one to talk about it with in like day-to-day life. If you bring it up, because this was a big deal.
It was.
They blew the call at the end of the game and cost the Lynx the game, the title. Nafisa Collier is amazing. Number 24 for the Lynx. She is, to me, the best player in the WNBA right now. To me, I think she's better than Asia Wilson, but I'm biased because I just like the Lynx players, so
Sure.
it doesn't matter. But the you see it, it's crazy. If something like this happened in the NFL or the NBA or whatever, nonstop wall to wall coverage, people, you could talk about
right.
it interpersonally.
Yeah, you could like bring it up at work the next day.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up around little places I go to.
And they're like,
what are you
"What?"
talking about? Oh, you care about the WNBA? Yes, I care about the WNBA.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're like, you get like, made fun of. Like, oh,
Yeah,
that's
they're like,
whack.
what?
Oh,
Why?
Why? It doesn't matter. And I'm
There's
like,
so many NBA games on. Why do you need more basketball?
I'm like, yo, this
Watching the NBA is boring.
That's
Watching
false.
the WNBA is way better. This
That's
is how I've always
false.
felt. The NBA is boring as
That's false.
fuck.
Now, I will say,
No, which is not to say they're not impressive athletes.
No,
the style of play.
I will not take
snooze.
smut on the NBA game today. I will allow smut on the NBA game of 1999 and 1998. Well, yeah, because listen, okay. This is I will go to the grave saying this. The NBA today with like the shooting and all of this, the way that the game is played is the way the NBA game is played now is like how the WNBA was played in the 90s and early 2000s. Like, because they couldn't dunk the ball, right? You had to have shooters like that could pass the ball and take shots, and it was below the basket game, right? So the style of play was more up and down, what I recall, right? And the number of threes taken, it felt like there were more threes taken. Now I'd have to look, maybe later.
Look at the stats.
I'll look at the stats to test
Which
my
that's
theory.
we should do an episode on stats. I think stats are stupid.
Wow.
Who needs them?
Okay.
No, I just mean like the people you meet and they're like, well, actually, this team's projected to win because of blah blah blah.
Yeah. Some
if
of it
that,
goes too
like,
far.
Tells you everything.
Well,
about
it's
the
because
game or
like
whatever.
it's because baseball had the stats game on lock. If you were a dweeb, you watched baseball.
Yeah, and you know what baseball is?
Boring.
Fascist.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
These are some takes from somebody that doesn't
know
watch
anything about
sports or
sports.
know anything about it, but has very personal reasons for saying these things.
That's the vibe.
She's out of
I
pocket.
get. It's the vibe I get from contemporary baseball. I know it's not always been that way. I don't even
Actually,
know if it's that way
no.
now.
They did not let black players play. So,
But like then they did.
It's always been
eventually.
conservative.
So like I don't know. I'm like
they did
assuming,
retire
like, maybe
Jackie
something
Robinson's
cool happened
jersey.
then.
No, you're right. Because
Okay,
they
great.
listen. This is a whole other episode though. But so the Negro Leagues, they banned all the black people from playing. The Negro Leagues had amazing players, Josh Gibson, many others that set like records, right? In the Negro League stat books. So the home run king is technically Josh Gibson, a black player.
Okay.
But his stats weren't counted until now. They merged the
like recently.
yes, within the
right? Or
past
am I
like
wrong
5
about that?
years,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. They've brought in
Which
the
is
Negro League stats.
wild.
Well, they've always been doing that.
Yeah.
The MLB stats themselves, there wasn't always Major League Baseball. There were a bunch of leagues. So some of
got
those
you.
white leagues that
Yeah.
that also
Word.
weren't MLB had their stat lines recognized as
Gotcha.
MLB statistics. So the Negro Leagues is not different.
Yeah.
But all of
Yeah,
these
no.
dorks come out of the woodwork because that means that Babe Ruth isn't the home run king or Barry Bonds or whatever
Yeah,
they want to
whatever
say.
thing they're attached to.
And they get obsessed about this, and they're like, these stats
Try
are
to
junk,
debunk
and
it,
try to
yeah.
debunk and try to shit on all the black players and whatever.
Yeah, we're not having that.
And so you might be onto something. Baseball,
yeah, if that's what the culture is built around.
baseball is deeply conservative, but there's been a history of like communists
Yeah.
with baseball
Yep.
and like who was pushing the integration struggle, like
Like I'm sure I just really
Lots of stuff.
pissed somebody off who actually knows a lot about baseball.
About
And they're gonna be
baseball,
like,
yeah.
How dare she? And this
Yeah.
is like they're done. They're not watching this.
Yeah, I
anymore.
guess.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, baseball fans. You still are dweebs, though. That's fine. It's fine to be a dweeb, But the point of this is that baseball's stats were more advanced in terms of the math behind them than other sports. And so within the past like 20 years or so, they took some of the statistical modeling or the principles of statistical modeling from baseball and applied it to football and basketball. And it's changed the game. So there's a huge portion of people that are like stats suck because of how much they've taken over the way the game is. They'll like a professional basketball player, they'll tell them you can't take that shot. That's a bad shot because of statistics. And then it changes the way the game is played.
So
yeah. So
boring.
Anyway.
So what do we have coming up? What games are coming up?
Yeah, let's take a look. Okay. Let's go back to our text.
The schedule.
Yeah, the schedule. All right. So the season starts. It looks like May 16th, and the big match for me,
Minnesota and
Dallas. Why?
Ooh, yeah, because we got Paige, #1 draft pick, who was drafted to the Dallas Wings, but is a Minnesota native.
Yes.
Up
and
against the Lynx,
which is a great team.
So who are you going for?
Obviously, the Lynx.
Oof.
Nafisa Collier.
Yeah,
Obviously.
I hear you.
Obviously. Then we got, let's see, who else we got?
Golden State, we got the new team.
Yeah, the new team. So there's a Golden State Valkyries.
Yo, their lavender like color that they have is so cool.
Lavender. So, all right, actually, that brings up another thing from the game last year. So after Breanna Stewart won,
yeah.
and she's up there with her wife and kid and stuff, right? And then they cut before they could
they going for a kiss.
Yeah, camera cut.
Can't see women kissing on national TV.
Man.
Not allowed.
You gotta let them go hard with. You gotta let them be out and lesbian. Like, when I was showing the defunct teams, right? Most of those women had to be in the closet back then. The league was mandating this.
Yeah.
Like the push.
We should do a deep dive on
like
that.
Cheryl Swoops was in the closet.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of people. So a lot of women. So I'm not with that shit at all. So when they did that, it was noticeable to me because that's not something that would happen in between a man and a woman if a man won a championship. So anyway, I highlight that game though also because Cameron Brink, who plays for the LA Sparks, she's coming back. So this will be her first game back. She got hurt last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, she's good.
Yeah, she's good.
So that's fun.
She was the #2 draft pick in 2024, right?
Yes. Look at you. Who was #1?
Caitlin Clark.
That's right. So
which is
the next game that's coming up on the 17th.
Ooh, which people are going to tune in for that one because of the assumed Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark.
I guess we should zoom in some so they can
rivalry, which they deny is a rivalry, but their fan bases are very
really
much
crazy.
To it
Yeah,
it's
I don't really enjoy that part.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't love it.
It just seems unnecessary.
It's unnecessary.
I don't know what people get out of it.
They're kind of trying to recreate
racism.
They're trying to recreate like the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson thing from the NBA, and I'm like, look. We don't need that.
No,
all right.
We don't.
The only thing that I can think of when I think of Larry Bird and all of the hate is that Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing.
Oh yeah.
The guy is walking down the street in the Larry Bird jersey and steps on the shoes. Like, anyway,
that's so
specific. It's so specific, but that's definitely what this is tapping into. Is for sure. And do we have to? So. But at any rate,
then we got Las Vegas.
Lots of games.
The Aces, right? The Las Vegas Aces. Is
that you know team names now.
I'm learning.
Look at you.
Doing my homework.
So Las Vegas Aces. This is a big game too, right here. That is Asia Wilson. She's plays for the Aces.
One thing I do like about the WNBA is the smaller number of sports teams that are animals, mascots. Like. What is the New York Liberty or like the Las Vegas Aces? Like
that's
they're
true.
Not Bears or
that's true.
I don't know, Colts.
I mean,
That's
I feel like it
football,
just you just happen to have lived in places with animal
really?
team names.
No, that's not true at all. I live Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, but it was Indianapolis Colts. That's that's an animal thing. So
Is that not a thing? I don't know. I just feel like they're really creative.
I mean, New York has their team name, the basketball
yeah.
team named after a pair of pants. So
That's the
I
funniest
need
thing
you
I've
to
ever heard.
chill
No, that's so
on
true.
this. This is a
Okay.
weak take.
Whatever.
The
I'm just
New York
saying, I
Knicks
think
is
their
a pair of
names
pants.
I think that the WNBA names are funny. Like Seattle Storm, cool.
That is a
You
cool.
know?
But
Weather.
there's the Oklahoma
Your
City
weather.
Thunder.
Yeah.
Now the Storm came first before the Thunder. So just,
Yep.
you know.
I do like the Lynx though.
The
Lynx
Lynx
are really cool animals.
Yeah, really freaky kind of,
Yeah.
you know.
I hope I see one every time. Every time I'm in Minnesota, I'm like, do I get to see one? I've never seen one.
Also, another thing,
Have you ever seen one?
not in real life. I mean, well, I've seen it at the zoo, but
Yeah,
like
no,
that
we
doesn't
haven't seen one in
count.
the wild.
Another thing that's really great or that's changed in recent years is if you are thinking that you're going to be a WNBA fan now, it's
Now is the
easier.
time.
It's easier than ever because back in the day, it was hard. You couldn't even get not only could you not get jerseys, you couldn't, there was this like WNBA hoodie. It's orange with the logo on it. It's pretty famous. You couldn't even get that. Like the merchandise wasn't there. Like you couldn't support any of the teams because this is what I mean, like with the structural barriers. People will be like, nobody's watching it. Well, they're not providing any of the
Infrastructure or, like,
infrastructure
entry
to
points
facilitate
right.
public fandom,
Right.
which is necessary to like, because part of the
have a
reason why you have
robust
sports is
fan
is like the tribal thing.
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm in this shirt. I see you in this shirt. Hey.
Yeah.
And you for decades, like 2 decades pretty much, didn't have the ability to facilitate that really. So then that's going to impact like people's attachment to it, right?
Yeah.
The other thing though is if you have to pick a sport to like, the WNBA is great, especially if you live in a city with a team, because the games are really fun. Like
Yeah.
women's sports in general, like professional sports,
I've heard this from many people that the games are
So
super
much
fun
better.
and way more fun. than
so
NBA
much
games.
better. Like I've been to basketball and soccer, professional women's in the US, and the game is just like it's just fun.
Yeah.
Because there are like a lot of kids there and like just different types of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe the degenerate gamblers will flock and start like talking crazy in the games like they do in like basketball especially.
I mean, one thing that I don't think has happened at a WNBA game, has any animal rights activists glued themselves to the floor yet?
Yo,
Because we should do a whole episode on that.
that was wild.
When was that? Was that 2023 or 2024?
I can't remember
Are
when
they
it
still
was.
doing it? I don't know.
2022
Oh, okay.
or 23. I can't remember. This is with the Timberwolves. Yeah, because the owner of the Timberwolves owned a chicken farm that was where a bird flu outbreak happened, and they just did this like really like mass slaughter thing with like, it was like an oven or something. It was brutal, but they did that to kill all of the chickens so that they wouldn't spread the bird flu. And so the animal rights activists started gluing their hands to the court to delay the
the
games.
announcers would like cut from it and they'd be like, we're not going to give this any attention. We do not want to incentivize this behavior.
Yeah, but they couldn't cut from the most famous one where the woman was about to run up on the court and the security had sat next to her and tackled her before she could get. That was crazy.
Is that the threshold for when we know the WNBA is popular?
Is when they
Is
start
like
gluing.
massively popular is when an animal rights
You're
activist
right.
starts gluing
That's right.
themselves to the
That's right. Because
floor.
they only do that because it's popular.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. Yeah, so that's when we'll know.
That's
that
what we're
they've-
waiting for.
That's what we're waiting for.
We are doing this show until someone glues themselves.
Yeah,
To the court.
to the court. Also, to wrap up, whoops. I keep going to the whoops. To wrap up, I want to talk about something that has nothing to do with sports for a moment.
Okay.
It's a joke that I've been talking about all
no.
day.
Okay. I don't know what it is.
You're gonna roll your eyes when I say it. So, it wouldn't be right to end this show without talking about, some of the struggle against the Trumpism of the moment, which I think we're really missing out on some dynamic and creative ways of engaging the Trump question.
Yes, for sure.
One of them being Trump just announced that they're
Oh,
offering
Christ, okay.
$1,000 to any immigrant that self-deports And I think
Which is sick shit, by the
just
way.
insane. Just like, whatever. But they keep opening up these angles that we need to exploit.
We should all self-deport.
Everybody,
immediately.
I want to go to Mexico. There's a
Yeah.
Bad Bunny concert in December. And I'm like, yo, you give me a free ticket down there and $1,000 to pay for the show? I'm self-deporting to
I don't know if
Mexico.
you get to pick the dates
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the
yeah,
location.
Yeah, I'm gonna end
They'll
up in
be
El
like-
Salvador.
they'll be like, what country are we sending you? Like,
El Salvador.
Yeah,
or no,
exactly.
actually they just said that Rwanda is going to start taking people who are getting disappeared. So I'm going to end up in Rwanda, trying to go to a Bad Bunny concert.
Rwanda is volunteering a lot these days.
Yeah, this is not the first time they volunteer for this bullshit. But like, it's just, there's got to be ways of like really jamming up the works with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because this is harebrained stuff. I mean,
Any of these
$1,000.
new, like reporting mechanisms too, where you can like report teachers or
Yeah,
whoever
this is
for
crazy.
stuff,
Yeah,
or,
we
like,
just
whatever.
gotta,
Those
we
fuckers stay
gotta,
out of
what did they say? Flood the zone. Like we need 100 million people trying to get $1,000 to go to Mexico. That's what we really need to try to mess with this stuff, because this is crazy. And
But in the meantime, we'll be here
we'll be here.
talking about basketball
And also,
and politics.
that was actually a relevant little thing, because one last thing about the WNBA, it's known for its social protests, big time. It's a big part of the sports culture, and from the BLM stuff, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That they've taken a position on. So this season will be interesting, considering
be.
like it's the first post-election season.
Yeah.
So with Trump, this
Right.
wave of Trump. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, or see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, but tune in. The games are on. Ion is actually.
What is that?
I think it used to be UPN.
What's that?
Okay, you're not black, so
Oh.
you didn't
What
grow
is
up
it?
watching
What is
UPN.
UPN?
You didn't watch Homeboys from Outer Space.
No, but that sounds cool.
Bill Cosby was like, "This is the most racist coonery."
So it was awesome.
It was great. I watched it all the time. Homeboys from Outer Space. Oh
I
man.
need to see a clip.
Yeah, it was
immediately
brutal.
after this.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's on Ion, and then of course the nationally televised games are on ESPN, and you can also subscribe to the local stuff. Yeah, support the W.
Yeah,
But this is the W,
the W.
and that's that.